Hello once again. So this is our second part of the lesson, which is about grammar. As you can see, the title is about passive voice and passive voice, simple present and simple past. So before going into details and explaining the course, passive voice, we use it to put the focus on the object rather than doer. For example, I tell you John speaks English. This is active, and the passive English is spoken by John. So in the active, we put the focus on John, who is the doer of the action, or who is the subject. But when we transfer the sentence into the passive voice, English is spoken by John, so we put the focus or the emphasis on the object, which is English. Another example is Christina sings a song. So this is the active, and the passive is a song is sung by Christina. So when we transfer, as I said, the sentence from the active into the passive, we put the focus on the object. Okay, let's look at the example we have on the left about apples. Apples, the world's favorite fruit. More than 50 million tons of apples are grown every year. So 50 million tons of apples are grown. So the form is okay. We put the object, which is apples in this context, and followed by verb to be in the same tense. We have the object plus past participle. Okay, and then you continue your sentence. The next example, the first apples were grown in Central Asia. The first apples were grown in Central Asia. So the first apples were, here we have verb to be in simple past, grown, okay, which is the past participle. As I said, we're relating the lesson to the title, simple present and simple past. So if you want to make passive voice in simple present, you put the object followed by verb to be in simple present plus past participle. If you want to make the passive voice in simple past, you put the object followed by verb to be in simple past plus past participle. It's okay. The third example we have there, the first apple tree was brought to Europe by Alexander the Great. The first apple tree was. To be in simple present, okay, it's clear. I am, you are, he, she, it is, we, you, they are. And in simple past, I was, you were, he, she, it was, we, you, they were. So verb to be must be memorized by heart to facilitate the task of the passive voice. The next example we have, apples were introduced to the Americans by Europeans in the 60s. Where apples were, because apples it's simply plural, were, I said, to be in simple past plus introduced past participle. Okay, something else for past participle. It's like for simple past with the tense, we have regular and irregular verbs. For regular verbs, verb plus d or ed or ied. And for irregular verbs, there is a list of irregular verbs which must be memorized by heart. It's okay. Before the last, we've got today most apples are produced in China. And the last, apples aren't usually found in tropical countries. So you can put the verb to be in negative form if you want, and of course if you want to make it also in the interrogative form, why not? Okay, presentation. You can use the passive to talk about facts and processes. Most apples are grown in China. The passive focuses attention on the action or the object of the action. So this is what I said before. The object of the action becomes the subject of the verb. Okay, the examples we have there. People grow apples in China. So grow, which is the action, and apples, the object. When we transfer the sentence from active to the passive, we say apples are grown in China. So as you can see above, people grow apples. We don't have verb to be. But when we transfer the sentence into the passive voice, we need urgently verb to be to make the sentence correct. To form the passive, use verb to be plus past participle. It's okay. See page 335 for a list of common irregular past participles. Affirmative and negative, present simple and past simple. This apple juice is, was, isn't, wasn't made in China. These apples are, were, aren't, weren't grown in China. So this is in simple, both in simple present and simple past. Questions present simple. Here, if you want to insert WH questions, there is no problem again. It depends on the context, okay, in which you are speaking, or the situation. Where is or where was this apple juice made? Where are or where were these apples grown? So it depends on the context. By, when you want to say who or what was responsible for the action, the subject or agent of the action you use by. Apples were introduced to the Americans by Europeans in the 60s. So here we have two agents or two doers, or the people who are, or the sites who are responsible for the actions. You may not want to say who or what did the action. You can also say apples were introduced to the Americans in the 60s. You can say also apples were introduced to the Americans by Europeans. Sorry, you can say, yeah, the example we have there, I'm sorry. Apples were introduced to the Americans in the 60s. So, and you stop. You don't normally use by when the agent is obvious and therefore unnecessary. The first apples were introduced in Central Asia, unknown, which means we don't have who grew apples in Central Asia. Unknown, an apple was left on my desk. I don't know who left it there. Okay, I think this all for the course. It's very easy, and this is in brief. We move to the part of the exercises.
Exercise 3.
Exercise 1
1.
says complete the sentences
Pasta
with
was first brought
present
to
simple,
Italy
with the
by
present simple
Marco
or
Polo.
passive or the past simple
2.
passive form of a verb in
Pasta is
brackets.
now eaten all over the world.
So
3.
we have there
Tomatoes were first
verbs
grown in South
between.
America. 4. The first cookbook with tomato recipes was written in Naples.
There are some regular and irregular
5.
So as I said before,
Parmesan cheese is made in Italy by the cheesemakers of Parma.
IED. And
6.
irregular verbs, you can choose
The
that.
cheese is made with cow's milk.
Exercise 2 says complete the second sentence so that it has the same meaning as the first sentence. Use a passive verb. Exercise 3, this is okay to be done with the audio, so listen carefully and cross out the phrases with by where they are not necessary, then listen and check.
Exercise 3. 1. Pasta was to Italy by Marco Polo. 2. Pasta is now eaten all over the world. 3. Tomatoes were first grown in South America. 4. The first cookbook with tomato recipes was written in Naples. 5. Parmesan cheese is made in Italy by the cheesemakers of Parma. 6. The cheese is made with cow's milk.
Okay, and the last exercise, 4 says Write some examples of your own. This is has to do with your own capacities and skills. This is the end. I wish and I hope and I eagerly okay enjoyed explain to you this lesson. And as usual, if you've got any questions or remarks or suggestions, okay, whatever, you are most welcome to contact me at any time you want. I wish you very good luck. Your teacher, as usual, shows you much respect and love.